Hi, I'm Greg Jones, 1623 Custom Harmonicas, your Seydel dealer and technician. In today's video, we're going to talk briefly about some very minor adjustments you can make on your Seydel Diatonic harmonica. So first of all, we get this. I get this request quite often, and just a brief discussion on this. Sometimes players will write in and say, hey, I just don't think my harmonic diatonic is responsive enough. I'm having problems with this note or that note. Very commonly, it will be the 2 or 3 draw. And so we're going to talk about that briefly and maybe a few adjustments. First of all, it's my view that the manufacturers, all the manufacturers, are their stock harmonicas are better than they've ever been in the history of manufacturing and the history of the harmonica. And so I really think as players we need to focus much more on our own technique and playing skills before we start trying to make adjustments. And I deal with this issue daily. It's almost an everyday occurrence for me, and I think that a lot of the reasons for this is because players are not taking private lessons or not taking individual one-on-one lessons. They're kind of going the YouTube route, and so I'm always going to advocate working on your technique first. And a couple ways you can do that when you're working, especially on some of the advanced beginner techniques like bending and stuff like that. Try and play with a very relaxed posture. Try and be as relaxed as possible. We don't want blues face where we're doing all that. We want to be extremely relaxed, and we want to try and get those notes and work on that, and then hold the notes sustained. So find a bent note. And hold it as long as possible, and try and be as relaxed as you can. I mean, this is a stock, straight out of the box, 1847, and I'll just demonstrate. I can actually overblow the 5 on a straight out of the box harmonica. Even the 4 overblow comes out. So, I mean, those overblows, I know they sound atrocious, but at least they're there. And so I think first and foremost, we need to work on our technique. If you're convinced that you could make your harmonica a little bit more responsive, or you just think that there might be some improvements, we're going to go through a couple of really simple ones right now. So anyhow, I'm going to turn the camera down and rejoin you in just a second. Okay, so when we work on our harmonicas, I always recommend, just a quick freebie tip for you, work over a napkin or a towel. It's because we've got little bitty screws, and they're going to fall out, and if they hit a hard surface, they're going to bounce, and you will eventually find them in the bottom of your foot, but you may not find them when you're ready to put your harmonica back together again. So let's always work over a towel or a napkin. It's one of the things that I do. And in this case, our screws on this harmonica, these are standard Phillips, some and require only a standard Phillips, cheap Phillips screwdriver. Some harmonica manufacturers, including Seydel in years past, have used what we call posi, which is a slightly different driver, but in this case we're using a standard barrel style, sec style cover screws that require a standard Phillips head. So I'm going to take the covers off and take the screws out. And now that I have those out, I'm going to put them on a safe place here on my workbench. And now that we have it like this, now the harmonica can be played without the covers. You just have to be careful not to let your lips touch any of the reeds, so that will obviously prevent the reed from vibrating. But in this case, what we're going to do, we're going to try and make a couple of adjustments on the 2, 3, and maybe even some of the other notes. So if we'll look at these, if you examine the reed gaps here, and it's going to be really hard for me to show you this on the camera here, but we'll see that these blow reeds have a gap that's probably the largest on the 1 and then gets gradually smaller as the reeds get smaller. And for the most part, the same is true of the draw reeds. Now, if hypothetically, if we were trying to make that draw reed, the 3 draw, if we wanted the 3 draw bend to be a little bit smoother, this is somewhat counterintuitive, but we actually want to reduce the gap on the 3 blow. Okay, and so we're going to explain that. A draw bend is a dual reed event, and it's a complex physical interaction of the blow and draw reeds that sort of work together to produce these intermediary pitches. And on the 3, this is a C, and on this, as we know, our blow note is a G, and our draw note is a B. Okay, so in between there, we know that we'll have, so we start with the G note, then we have the G sharp, the A, and the B flat, and the B. So the G sharp, A, and B flat are intermediary pitches that we have to produce through technique, okay? And so that can be a little tricky, as we know, and it's just a standard draw bend, but it still can be difficult. And so I'm using a tuner here and looking at these pitches, and I find that in general, the intermediary pitches come in pretty well, but I'm going to show you how, if I want to make them just a little smoother, how I might do that. I'm going to make an adjustment to this blow reed, okay? And so the reason I'm going to do that is I want less air escaping out of the blow reed. So when I'm drawing, air is going to pass across the draw reed, but some air is going to escape and essentially be wasted out of the blow side. And so we want less air to be wasted or to be unused, and we want more of that air to be used to propel the draw reed and to work in conjunction with the blow reed. And we don't want air just escaping and being used and not being used. And so what we're going to do, we're going to just lower the gap a little. And it's real simple. I'm just using a probe here, but you can use a small screwdriver, or a toothpick is really your best option. And all you're going to do, you're just going to push that reed in just like that. And you're going to get some tension and bring it up. Now, you want to do this gradually. You want to do it carefully, and you don't want to go too much. There has to be some adequate gap on the blow reed. If there isn't, the reed will do what we call choke when you blow. In other words, you'll try to play that 3 blow, and there will be no sound at all. There has to be enough room for air to get in between the reed and the reed plate to propel the blow reed into action. So there's a trade-off. The lower this gap is, the more control you have to have on the 3 blow, but the smoother your 3 draw bend will be. So what I've done is just slightly lowered that gap by just bringing that reed up with my finger and getting a little tension on it and flicking it back. So I'll hold the tuner up for you. That's your A, so that's an intermediary pitch. That's a half-step bend and a B flat. I think I could maybe make just a slightly smaller gap in there. And I'm going to do this process just a couple more times. Now that's going to be the lowest bend, and that's going to be a G sharp, and I'm actually able to take it past there. So I think I've found kind of a sweet spot there. You can make some adjustments to the draw side, but really your bends generally come from the blow. Your draw bends come from the blow side. But if you want to make a slight adjustment in the gap, you could do so with your fingernail and just kind of push that reed in there. So now I've done this on the 3 draw. Here's the thing. My advice, if you do it on the 3 draw, you should make slight adjustments to the 2 draw as well. So I'm just going to go through the same process right here. I'm just going to put that reed up, just like that. Sorry about this. There we go. I'm just going to do that. I might even go over to the one side a little bit. Anyhow, I'm going to readjust the camera. That's just a simple technique that you can use to possibly smooth out your draw bends. Now, a couple things. It is likely you're not going to break anything on a Seydel. As long as you go slow on this, you're not going to break or cause any damage. One possibility is, though, is that you will, and I alluded to this earlier, is that you will make this gap too small. And if that happens, the blow note's not going to sound. And so if that happens, you're going to have to go back the other way, and you're going to have to open up that gap. And basically, you're going to go in reverse. I mean, you're just going to press down on that reed. So we want to be careful so that that doesn't happen. It's a little, it can be frustrating. It happens to me all the time. But just be aware, if you go too far and that blow note doesn't sound, you're going to have to go through and make the adjustment the other way. Anyhow, so I'm going to assemble the harmonica back and play a little bit more. But in general, that's how we make adjustments to our basically our 2 and our 3 draw bend setup. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Greg Jones, 1623 Custom Harmonicas.